YouTube, hey, and thank you for joining me once again. It is super, super, super appreciated. So many thanks. Today's really a bit of an interesting one and a very, very different one. And just I want to take on a bit of a personal journey because imagine if you're watching this, you're somewhere along that spectrum of your journey where you're maybe starting to see some success, some long-term, some medium-term consistency, or you're maybe just starting out. Now, when I first started, I'll be 11 years this spring that I've been trading. So coming up to a big milestone, and the person I was when I started over 11 years ago is very different to the person I was now. And I would say trading is one of the main reasons for that. But at the same time, I've personally intrinsically changed as well to then adapt to more successful trading, more optimal mindset, and so on and so on, that holistic approach. So it's been a little bit of both. And I've needed to go through those necessary changes because trading can be a lot of different types of people can make it in trading, but it doesn't mean that not a lot of work is needed. Personality wise is a huge dictator on how successful someone ends up being in trading, whether that's short term, medium term, long term. And I like to think by now, like I said, I've been trading nearly 11 years. First three and a half years of that is how long it took me to find my sort of consistency. And things have still changed over the years because the frustrating thing about trading is that it's not like a skill where once you master it, it's done. You need to be continuously on your game, continuously maintaining your edge, continuously refining and assessing and evaluating. Are you still trading optimally? Is there anything you need to change, adapt? Is there anything as we go through different market cycles? Markets are very cyclical, but within sort of 10, 11 year periods, we see an awful lots of different types of market periods. So it's important that your strategy, your psychology, your whole holistic edge is able to adapt in those times to still perform. I see a lot of people at the moment of Q1 2025, which ends in the next day or two. A lot of people are blaming Trump on maybe some of the choppiness we're seeing in the markets. And I say to those people, you can't blame Trump. What you're experiencing with market conditions at the moment is very normal. It's very healthy. If you've been around long enough, you will know that. And there are certain ways you need to adapt, certain ways you might need to change in the short term or medium term, depending on how markets are presenting. So the first thing I would say is really, I'm not really an emotional person, never have been. But as you know, with trading, you cannot make decisions based off emotion. If you start making decisions based off emotion, you end up more than likely going down a bit of a rabbit hole, losses, blowing of funded accounts, perhaps blowing of personal capital. It's a bit of a nightmare and it's a bit of a catastrophe. You have to make decisions off systems, off processes, off calculated, probable decisions. Okay. As you know, trading is a game of probability. It's about how good a risk manager you are, how good a probability manager you are. So emotions cannot really come into it. Now, we are all human. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying don't be emotionless, I'm not saying be emotionless, but you really have to master yourself in terms of curbing those emotions, curbing those feelings at both ends of the spectrum. Greed, excitement when things are going well, and also curbing obviously the other side of the spectrum when there's frustration, there's disappointment. You might be feeling sad, you might be feeling massively frustrated at the process. You have to learn how to curb both ends of the spectrum. So I have found over the years, although I wasn't the most emotional person in the world anyway, before my trading really took off many years ago, I've found I have as a person as well become probably even less emotional than I already was, because trading is a lifestyle, and I don't mean that in all that rubbish and nonsense you see online. I mean in terms of daily discipline, daily consistency with healthy, positive habits such as fitness, such as diet, doing things when you don't want to do them, because there will still be natural inklings in your mind, even when you're 11 years in like me, where you think, oh, that looks good, but maybe I'm overlooking the odd detail that I shouldn't be. And you've got to immediately snap that back and say, no, you've got to be super disciplined and make sure, no, that doesn't meet my optimal criteria, so it doesn't get taken. And so I was going to say, the less emotional you can be, or the the more control you can have, should I say, over your emotions, it will make you a much better trader, both getting to the point of consistency, but also then seeing longevity with that consistency as well. Sorry, my cappuccino is going to go cold otherwise. So the next thing then I would say is, when it comes to, again, personality wise, you have got to be very good, and this again spills into personal life, at making rational decisions and not emotional ones, as I briefly touched upon earlier. Something I like to do with this is, I say to some of my mentees is, if you're undecided on a trade, if you're umming, if you're ahhing, if you're not sure whether you're about to pull the trigger or not, write a list, pros, cons. The pros list should be absolutely populated with all your confidences, all the factors that you look for, all the synchronicity, or whatever your strategy compiles or contails of. In the cons list, there shouldn't be anything. And I mean that. There should not be anything, because that list is basically just dictating to you, and it's making you write it out so it's more systemized decision making compared to emotive decision making. That list is basically your optimal setup. So if there's anything that's not in that, if there's anything in that's in that cons list, that means it's not an optimal setup. And that list will look different for everybody. But that's another lovely way. If you're somewhere in the middle of your journey at the moment, still looking for that consistency, that's another little exercise you can start doing to help you rationalize whether to enter or whether to not. Okay. So it's yeah, because I know exactly what you're all going through. I've been there. Trust me, I've had big lows when it comes to obviously personal capital losses. There's a video from probably over 5-6 months ago now explaining that. So I've been there, trust me. But trading is for those very resilient people. It's for those people that have a genuine passion, genuine interest in it, and the outcome it can eventually give you. Because it's not for the faint-hearted, as a lot of you will know. I'm sure if you're watching this, you're not a beginner. And I'm sure you've already had your fair share of heartache moments and frustration and angriness and, God, the full spectrum, the full works of emotion. Trust me, as I said, I've been there. But as I say to people, if you can try and go down always a logical, a systemized decision-making process, not emotive, if you can really work on in terms of how to just curb both ends of the spectrum of emotion, from a psychological standpoint, that will, if you can master those two things predominantly, that will then help curb and stop things like FOMO, things like over trading, things like over leveraging. So if you get those two key pillars I've just talked about, it will positively naturally spill over on all those other negative habits that a lot of unsuccessful and aspiring traders do still, which ultimately self-sabotages them. So I just thought I'd hop on in and just talk about that personal journey, really. I could go on for ages and ages about it. But it's an interesting one. I've been through what I'm sure you guys are going through at the moment, and I promise it's worth it. Those that dig deep, those that stay disciplined, those that stay consistent, you will eventually get where you want to be, whether that's 3.5 years in like I was, whether that's 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. I've met people where it's taken them nearly 9 and 10 years. That's okay. If they get there in the end, who cares? Okay. It doesn't matter. Stay on your own journey, and I wish you all the best of it. Guys, thank you again for stopping by. It's hugely appreciated, and I love making these videos. Just pressing the record button and off we go. No scripting, and just covering the points that I want to cover. So as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. You're all great.